and let there be football. Welcome to Move the Chains. I'm your host, Jonathan Bam Rivers. On the MTC call sheet today, full reaction from the Thursday night game between the Cowboys and the Eagles. A lot of what I expected went down, and a lot of what I didn't expect went down. And I don't know what else you could want out of week one in the NFL. And then second down, we're going to talk about some chain gang chatter. Now, there have been two games that have transpired in the NFL already, but I'm going to answer some questions because we're fully entrenched in the NFL season. And in my nonsense narrative, there's a team that's won their division 4 straight years, and this year would make it a 5th, whom in a lot of people's minds are not a Super Bowl contender. And I'm going to tell you why in Tampa they should be considered a favorite to win the Super Bowl in the 2025-26 season. And last but not least, I'm ready. All that and more right here on Move the Chains. But you know how we do it. Let's kick it off with the opening toss. All right, so I guess I want to take my time and break this down because there are so many different, I want to say, layers to the Cowboys and the Eagles. One, shout out to the NFL for having all of these week one divisional games. I love it because it puts teams behind the 8 ball and it gives teams a really big advantage in terms of their standings, not just in the conference but in the division. Because if you're anybody, you want to win your division first and foremost. But Cowboys-Eagles kind of gave me what I expected. And what did I expect? I expected the Eagles to win the game, first of all. I also expected the Cowboys to cover the points and cover the spread. I keep saying this about Dallas. Everybody wants to talk about Jerry Jones and how they run this thing like a circus, and I'm not debating that. I'm just simply saying that they are also interested in winning football games, regardless of the trade of Micah Parsons, which moving forward, when you see any Dallas game and they don't get any sacks, which they did have a couple of sacks Thursday, and I don't think Philly had any, if I'm not mistaken, which is ironic, they're going to talk about Micah Parsons not being there, which I think is legitimate because they are weaker as a defense as a whole right now without Micah Parsons. But as I watched this game, I told my director, Ernest, this. I said, I think there's one thing about the NFL that's very misleading, and it's the box score. And the box score, for those that don't know, gives you all of the statistics, the first downs, the turnovers, the touchdowns, the passing yards, the tackles, everything for a player and a team in any individual game. The box score tells you everything you need to know, but it doesn't always. And why am I saying that? One, I want to say it because you're in a situation to where the Eagles are, first of all, playing without their starting defensive tackle and their star in Jalen Carter because he spat in the face of Dak Prescott. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that right now. I'll do that in other videos that I make for social media probably. But I will say that it speaks to the undisciplined nature of Philly, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and that's what surprised me. But the box score lies because when I look at Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott, both quarterbacks in my estimation played very well opening night on Thursday. But if you're Jalen Hurts and you're getting pressure on first down and you elude a sack that could have resulted in an 8-yard loss, but you get 3 yards, it's 2nd and 7. The box score would tell you that is a rush of 3 yards. But what the box score won't tell you is that it saved a loss of 8. That's an 11-yard difference. And that's the difference between possibly being 3rd and short, so where you can run the tush push in Philly, or 3rd and long, to where you have to throw the football. And Dallas, I think, was very good, especially in the second half defensively, of changing up their defenses with Matt Eberflus, bringing pressure from the secondary and making Jalen Hurts have to run against his own defense rather than man-to-man. That being said, I feel, one, that the box score doesn't always tell you the full story because that's how good Jalen Hurts is. And I think he'll show you that Jalen Hurts, in a lot of people's minds, they may never vote him as MVP, but he can easily be one of the most valuable players, if not one of the most valuable players in the league for what he does that people don't recognize. Secondly, what did I say about Philadelphia earlier on in the summertime for those of you that watch this show? The one thing in my estimation that could take Philly away from being a repeat champion or being one of the best teams in football would be them trying to be somebody that they're not. Trying to be somebody who's throwing the football 30 or 45 times a game simply because somebody wants them to, or simply because pundits or analysts or whomever try to say that you need to show me more. I'm going to add to that list. I'm going to say being undisciplined in penalties. And see, this is what I mean. It felt like, and this was what felt a little funny to me, it felt like Philadelphia felt as if they needed to be the bully on the block, which they already are. They felt as if they needed to intimidate the Cowboys, which is what I got from the whole Jalen Carter situation, which is what I got from Nolan Smith, which is what I got from some of the defensive penalties that they got in the secondary. I felt like they felt as if they had to come out and make a statement Well, remember, they're the hunted now. This is a cliche that a lot of people like to say because the defending champion is not a hunted. But they acted as if they weren't. And I'm not saying be less aggressive, Philly. I'm not saying Philly did anything wrong in terms of their game plan. I'm simply saying that they don't have anything to prove other than who they are to themselves. Because I understand who Jalen Hurts is, the leader that he is. I understand how great of a teammate and how great of a player Saquon Barkley is. I understand how great of a GM Howie Roseman is and how good Howie Roseman and how good Nick Sirianni has been as a head coach. They don't have anything to prove. If I'm looking at the Dallas Cowboys, I said it when they traded Micah Parsons. One, it was a great move for the team. Two, I think Dallas will be better than a lot of people think they will be, and I think you saw that. And what I love about football and what I loved about this game is that because the game was so close, and because I talked about the Philly margin of error being compromised because of their penalties, a big turnover in the third quarter right before the Lightning delay happened where Miles Sanders put it on the ground after a 41-yard run that got him down there in the first place. Philly didn't necessarily take advantage of it because they scored points, but they took advantage of it because they were able to ice the game in the third and the fourth quarter, and their defense made adjustments as well because both teams were going up and down the field in the first half. This is the type of game within the division that I want to see, and this is the type of game, in my estimation, that epitomizes the NFL. One team that people think is supremely more talented than the other team, the less talented team in a lot of people's minds, plays a way that people didn't expect them to play. Dallas played physical. Schottenheimer did a very good job, in my estimation, in calling plays because Philly looked off balance at times defensively. Dallas could run the ball at times, and their offensive line, I think, is shown to be what they've been trying to build over the past 2 or 3 seasons. This is what they've been trying to do. And like I said, they don't go out and get 3 new running backs to not simply be a team who's going to just abandon the run. Dak Prescott's healthy. Dallas will be better than people expect. Jalen Hurts is the ultimate leader in the NFL. Philadelphia is atop the lead, of course, until the rest of the games this weekend in the NFC East. But Dallas will have a lot to say about it. And my last point is this. If you're Dallas, and if you're Philadelphia, and if you're any other team in the NFL, the one thing that you want to make sure that you can do is control the tempo, control your temper, and control the level of tenacity that you have. I think being under control in those 3 facets, tempo, tenacity, and also how you're doing things on a day-to-day basis, on a week-to-week basis, scheme, knowledge of your players, it matters. And when I look at Philly, the secondary has to be reworked because they lost so many people on that defense. So this is why no matter how good a team is coming in after winning a Super Bowl, even if they brought back the entire 53-man active roster, no team is the exact same team as they were the year before. And Philly may be good, but they've got a lot of work to do. All right, when we come back from the break, I'll answer your questions. And first, I want to know, and talking about in Chain Gang Chatter, what's going to be the game that intrigues me the most? Well, I'll tell you right after the break. Back when we move the chains, right after this. Welcome back into Move the Chains. Before I get to your questions via social media and the Chain Gang Chatter, I want to take this opportunity, as always, to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for hosting Move the Chains. Secondly, thank you to all the fans who watch on the Sports Leader WXTX Fox 54, or you check us out on TikTok or on YouTube or on Facebook, on this, wherever you check us out. I appreciate you watching. I also want to thank the best production crew in the business. You see the growth of this show. I'm super excited about where this show is going, and that shout out to the best production crew in the business that helped make sure this show was a success. And last but not least, you've seen the QR code at the bottom of the screen on the lower third. If you're hurting either financially, physically, spiritually, or mentally, make sure you scan that QR code, look at that information, and take the next steps to doing what's best for you and your family. Having said all that, you know what time it is, man. It's time for the Chain Gang Chatter. All right, so I take the social media every week so that I can understand what people are thinking along the landscapes of college football, in this case, the NFL. So let's go ahead and go to my first question. All right, what week 1 game intrigues me the most? So 2 games have happened already, and I didn't put those 2 on the list. But the week 1 game that really intrigues me is Cleveland against Cincinnati. And it intrigues me for a couple of reasons. One, everybody wants to talk about Cincinnati as a potential playoff team. I don't buy it just because of their defense, but there are other reasons why I think that this team could struggle this year. Now, I'm not rooting against Cincinnati. I'm just simply telling you this intrigues me the most is because, one, this team has not won a game in the first 2 games in the last 3 seasons. They're terrible in September, and they're not good in October, even with the quarterback as good as Joe Burrow. And I just continue to say that even though the quarterback is the most important position on the field, it's not the only position. But secondly, styles make fights and matchups matter, and the Cleveland Browns simply match up very well against the Cincinnati Bengals. That's all I'm telling you, man. Like Cincinnati with Joe Burrow as quarterback is 3-5 against the Browns. We do know that Cincinnati with Joe Burrow has a losing record against the AFC North. Does anybody know that? Does anybody care? And I'm not saying that because I want to put a damper on Cincinnati and their playoff hopes and tell their fans they're not any good, because that's not necessarily true. I'm just simply saying that's the reality of the situation. So people keep saying, well, you should be the Cleveland team that you're better than. We don't know that Cincinnati's better. We do know that Cincinnati struggled defensively. We do know that Cleveland has a 40-year-old quarterback and 2 rookies behind him, but we do know Cleveland will have a formidable defense. Everybody talks about Baltimore and their secondary. Cleveland's secondary rivals that secondary and can be as good, if not better. Cleveland spent a lot of draft capital, remember, to get guys like Grant Delpit, to get guys like Newsome. Does everybody remember that? Like, they are very good in the secondary as well. So when I look at this matchup, it intrigues me because it's a divisional round game in the AFC North, and Cincinnati has simply struggled with Cleveland over the past 3 or 4 seasons, and it may not be any different. All right, what's my next question? What's the biggest misconception heading into 2025? Aside from what happened versus the Chargers, I think the biggest misconception that the Chiefs have to have the deep ball to win a Super Bowl. And the reason it's a misconception is because you've seen them win two Super Bowls without the deep ball. And here's another thing. People continue to say that Patrick Mahomes' numbers have been down the past few years. They're right, but nobody ever wants to talk about why. Nobody ever wants to talk about since 2021. If you look at the passing attempts, they've gone down from 21 to 22, 22 to 23, and from 23 to last season. Pass attempts went down each season. I think for 2 reasons. One, because the philosophy was different without Tyreek Hill and without the protection necessarily. They couldn't throw the deep ball as much. But secondly, it's because in the past 2 seasons, Patrick Mahomes hasn't even played 17 games because 2 years ago they clinched the 3 seed in the division and went on to win the Super Bowl. And last year they clinched the 1 seed prior to the last game of the season where nobody played. So those are reasons why numbers are down. And numbers for Mahomes are different than numbers from a Justin Herbert or numbers for a Kyler Murray or numbers for a Dak Prescott, because his numbers in the regular season don't matter. It's all about Super Bowls for the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. So to me, that's the biggest misconception, that their pass game has to be the reason that they win, when they've shown you the past 2 seasons, the past 3 seasons that they've won back-to-back Super Bowls, that they can win without that being the forefront of their organization, of their team on the field. All right, what's my last question? What team will receive the biggest reaction to a Week 1 loss? To me, this is easy, and it's the Miami Dolphins. If Miami loses Week 1, it's going to continue to feed the narrative that Tua isn't the franchise quarterback that Miami paid him to be. Plus, I think the competition matters. You're going up against a Colts team who can't get their quarterback situation straight. They have Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones that were fighting for a number 1 job, and now they've given it to Daniel Jones. And I continue to say, you look at Tua Tagovailoa and Justin Herbert, neither of them have been what people have wanted them to be. But Tua Tagovailoa takes definitely more heat because he hasn't been healthy. And now people are starting to say that the Mike McDaniels shine is wearing off. I've always said that this team is built for speed, but they're not built for the playoffs. You have to be built with the run first, and ironically, Miami can run the ball. So I want to know what happens. If they lose Week 1 versus Indianapolis tomorrow, then I already know what the narrative will be. It will be that McDaniels doesn't need to be the head coach, and they need to move off from Tua. And that may be true, it may not be true, but I know that's going to be what people are talking about. All right, when we come back from the break, 4-time reigning divisional champion that some don't see as a Super Bowl champion contender. It's nonsense. Back with my favorite segment of the show, right after this. And welcome back to Move the Chains. And now it's time for my favorite segment of the show. It's time for my nonsense narrative. So the next man up mentality does mean something because you can't quit. All right, so the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are not a Super Bowl contender. Is a nonsense narrative. Now, I'm not saying Tampa Bay needs to be the favorite. They're not. But I'm looking at this organization, and whatever you thought Todd Bowles was in New York with the Jets, he's the complete opposite in Tampa Bay. He's won a Super Bowl there as a defensive coordinator, and that transition from Arians to Bowles was so smooth. And again, I keep talking about Jason Light, who's the GM of this team. This team has been one of the best teams on third down the past few seasons with Baker Mayfield. They've been one of the best teams in the red zone, and this has been one of the best teams against the run and one of the best rushing teams in the NFL. That's how you win a Super Bowl. Now, the injuries are a concern, which is why I'm looking at this team throughout the season to see how they continue to grow, because Tristan Wirfs won't start the season on the field. I don't think Chris Godwin will, and also Jalen McMillan. But Mike Evans, Luke DeGecki just got his extension. And now you've got Emeka Ibuka, just those guys. And a healthy Antoine Winfield Jr. in the secondary is the same thing that a Kyle Hamilton is to the Baltimore Ravens. It's the same thing that Amika Fitzpatrick was to the Steelers before he got traded. Big-time players in Tampa Bay, especially on the defensive front and with Levante David in the middle. This is a team that is on track to win their 5th straight division title. And if Tampa Bay is who I think they can be, not just from a stealing standpoint, but from an organizational standpoint, week in, week out, they can definitely be performing in the Super Bowl this February or next February. All right, when we come back from the break, it'll be the final drive. In 2 words, we'll describe it. Back with what those 2 words are right after the break. And welcome back in. And now it's time for the final segment of the show. It's time for the final drive. Listen, I'm ready. It's just that simple. I'm ready for football because we are fully entrenched in the NFL and college football seasons. Now, I'm ready for all the nonsense. I'm ready for all the backlash. I'm ready for all the predictions that people made that didn't come true. Or I'm ready for the overreactions and some of the underreactions. I'm ready for the opportunity to take this thing to the next level. And I'm so excited about this season, and I can't wait to make it the best season ever. All right, don't forget, you can not only catch your boy and Move the Change right here on the Sports Leader WXTX Fox 54. You can also catch us on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. It's at move_the_chains. Make sure you like, subscribe, leave a comment, hit that notification bell so you can be notified of when we post another video, because we're here for it. Hey, another banger for the best production crew in the business. I'm your boy, Jonathan Bam Rivers, and always remember, build every day of your life brick by brick. And don't forget to scan that QR code at the bottom and call Robert and tell him that you're ready to move the chains in your life. And as always, right here, until next time on Move the Chains, God bless.